Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, February the 8th, 2011. Wow, time is really moving on. We have a special call tonight with our guest, Bruce Myers. And Bruce Myers specializes in helping people to get rid of their credit card debt, and I believe some other things as well. And so, without any further ado, hello, Bruce. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, Ted. How are you tonight?
All right. All right. Things are moving right along.
Good.
Looks like we've got all kinds of possibilities here of helping to get rid of debt, and the Republic coming along, and the whole dinar situation. Looks like things are kind of moving along all over the place. So, but tonight we're going to focus on credit card debt. And is there anything else that you care to mention tonight?
We can talk about credit card debt and cleaning up credit if you want. And the main thing would be the credit card debt, because that's what's troubling so many people today, apart from mortgages, which we have an interesting solution for that as well. But the focus will be on the credit cards because, well, that's what everybody came for this tonight. So hello, everyone. My name is Bruce Myers. I work with a couple of different companies. We do different things with the credit cards. And one is Financial Solutions and Debt Grief Relief. And we've been able to help a lot of people for over the last 8 years. And the one thing that most people didn't plan on was this insane credit card scenario where if you were late on a phone bill, they raised interest from 9.99 to 14.99 or whatever. And they have that universal clause in it. If you were late on your mortgage payment, they raise your rates. Or if they just felt like it, like Chase did, they raised them 4 points on everybody and said, if you don't like it, cancel your credit card. So it's been really a banker's paradise as far as being able to rip people off. And while I don't think that all bankers are bad, I just know that the basic concept that they have gotten into, and with South Dakota needing to, I think it was South or North Dakota, one of those two, the governor wanted some jobs in his state, so he said, you can raise the rates to anything you want. And now we actually have cards that are as much as $34.99. And I heard of once $37.99. I haven't seen it, but I heard of that. And but a lot of them are at 22%. That means on $10,000, you're paying $2,200 a year just for interest on a debt where they didn't have any money involved. What's that?
Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, what they've decided, what we've been faced with, is we were given all these cards, including I was a big brother at one time, and the young man went to Santa Barbara College. And while in Santa Barbara College, he was given 6 different credit cards with $5,000 limits on each one of them. And, of course, he made a lot of money, so they didn't have to worry about it. I mean, because he was working at a record shop making $6.50 an hour. I mean, this is insane. So the thing that, if you've seen the problems with the mortgages lately, where Bank of America is being sued, Wells Fargo is being sued for all the corruption, in the credit card industry, it's much worse in a way because it's so much higher. And if you were around in 1989, you saw the mortgages could charge out anything they wanted, like 18-20% for interest on a house, and that opened up the Pandora's box for credit cards because they said, why can we only charge 7%, which was considered usury? And now to get a card below 7%, you have to have a fairly high score. So what we did was we looked at these different practices of banks and what they were doing. And we found one thing that maybe you've heard this name before, but it's called ultra vires. And ultra vires means that they're allowed to do certain things, but beyond that scope, they're not allowed to do them. I use the example of a person gets a truck driving license. So he can drive one of those big 40-foot beds and take it down the road and he's totally licensed and legal and all that stuff. But can he now fly a plane with that same license? So what happens with bankers is they were allowed to lend money. But that would mean that they would give you Federal Reserve notes, silver, gold, but I mean they can't use silver and gold anymore, but Federal Reserve notes anyway. But what they do is they actually don't do that. They have a system where they go and they say they're lending credit now, but in their charters, it's actually different than what they are doing now. They are no longer lending money. What they are doing is doing ledger book financing. And that concept of ledger book financing was taught to me by an international banker I met many years ago. And he said they would go in and they would go to a business like Chris Craft Motors, and they would lend him $360 million and just write it in the book. Here's $360 million, and now you owe us that. And everybody's accepted this. But it isn't actually something that they can do legally. It's totally illegal, and that's what's called ultra vires, because they didn't have money there in the first place. It used to be that you would take your $10 or your $100 and you go down to the bank and you put it in the bank, and they would have money that they could lend out. But you've heard of fractionalized banking, which means that they can lend 9 times as much as they have. Now it's gotten ridiculous. It's beyond that. So there's been so much corruption after '89, and then in 1999, the banks could take those notes that you have. In other words, when you sign a credit card slip, that's a note. It's basically an IOU. But they could take those notes and they could sell them on the international markets, and they bundle them up similar to the way that they do mortgages. So as a consequence, here you are thinking that the bankers, and by the way, I always thought that bankers were the most honest people in the world. I had no idea of the corruption, and the corruption is so big that even on the History Channel a few months ago, I saw a thing on bankers from Roman times forward, and our President Jefferson even said that the corruption of the bank was the biggest concern that he had for America. And so now Obama, he doesn't have any industrialists on his cabinet. They're all people from Wall Street. And what he's done is he gave $700 billion to the banks. I mean, the guy is somehow lacking intelligence if he thinks that we can just give $700 billion. I don't know where they get the money, because that's like $2,000 or $3,000 for every person in America, and they're just giving it to bankers who made foolish mistakes with foolish loans. So anyway, I get into the being upset when I think about this and I start talking about it, because it's ruining our country and it's ruining our people, and it's making it so that this world could go under. And everything that we know, we could go into hyperinflation or whatever with these practices. So what we found is the laws. And if you've looked at or heard of the Uniform Commercial Code, we actually found that they have certain specific things that they're allowed to do and many things that they're not allowed to do. So those things that they're allowed to do are wonderful. It's just great to have bankers there, but 90% or more of what they do is actually illegal, and that's the ultra vires. They're allowed to lend money, but they're not allowed to lend credit. because it's like me giving you credit with nothing that I have in my hand. I say, sure, go out. And now, can anybody trust me? No, not necessarily. So the banks are very similar. What we do is we go in and we actually question them. We actually put forth the actual laws, and we actually force their hand to, by acquiescence, not say anything and agree to new contracts. In contract law, if I say I owe you $100, then, or you owe me $100, and you don't disagree with it, it's assumed to be true after a certain point. And so you could go to a sheriff and say, hey, he owes me $100, or you could take me to court. You know, you can actually jiggle these things around and create for yourself a situation where money is owed, even if it wasn't owed. Now, in this case, since they did not lend credit, they did not lend money, and there's no harm to the bank, because how could you harm if it was just a ledger book entry? What was harmed? Was there a person harmed? Was there a something that's going to cause other people to be hurt by not paying them? It's like, who is harmed if these things don't go right? And actually nobody. So therefore, they can't say you've harmed us, because all it was a ledger in a book. Now, the nice part about it is that we have found the laws that they work with. We have the Banker's Handbooks, and we have the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, and we have the Truth in Lending Act, and all of these things. And we use those for communicating with banks, credit card companies, and debt collectors. We have something so wonderful for debt collectors, for us to use against them, because of the laws that are extant. When people have this ability to know the truth and pass it on in a nice way with good amounts of data, such as here's the law, or as we had one gentleman that works with us, he actually went to a debt collector, and at the debt collector he said to them, here's the laws. Now, you're violating the laws, and I want you to all sit down here because I'm calling the police, and I'm doing a citizen's arrest. And he was going to take the whole debt collection company with him into jail, and he was going to basically put them away or get them on the prosecutor's list, and he was going to be able to sue them. And the debt collector knew that what he said was true. He knew that what he said was true, and so the debt collector said, well, how about if the owner of the debt collection company said, okay, you caught us. How about if we worked out something? And he said, what would you like to do? And this was a debt for $3,500. And the debt collector said, how about if I give you $3,500 and remove it from your credit report? It's like these guys know. It's not like something that's hidden. It's not like something that's hard to think with. These guys know what they're doing is wrong. They know it's illegal. They know they're just doing it in case they can get away with it. Like, I'm up in Seattle area, and there's a lawyer up here that submits 2,000 cases a month to the courts. 2,000 cases a month he takes into court on debt collections. So it'll be just helter-skelter, whoever he happens to get. He might even steal some of the debt notes and all that stuff, or the stuff off of the credit report. But 2,000 a month, and he doesn't care if, and I think he pays $70,000 a month just for the fees. Now, he's got a whole team of people that are trying to collect money on this. And it's such a big business that he can afford $70,000 a month and expect that he's going to make a profit and pay all the people that he needs to pay, because people don't know the law. And when we deal with debt collectors afterwards, we deal with a lot of them, but one of the things that we do with the debt collectors is we ask them for a copy of their bond. We ask them for a copy of their license to practice debt collection. We ask them for a copy of a W-9, which is to get their Social Security numbers because it's a taxable thing. We ask them for a color ID picture, in other words, a copy of their driver's license certified. Now, they don't want to give out all this information, but technically, before they can deal with you, they have to. And we ask them for the contract that they have with the bank. And we ask them for all their contacts at the bank. So by the time we get done with them, I've actually only seen one debt collector pursuing the collections because they knew that, and I don't know why they were doing it. Probably they had somebody that was a lawyer that was making money and thought he could get away with tackling this subject. But we've been doing this for a long time, and these debt collectors just go away. So we know that what we're doing is actually within the law. We know that what we're doing is actually right for the people, because I had one lady I was talking to today that just she lost her job. She just lost her car, and she doesn't even have any transportation. She requires other people to take her around, and the debt collectors are coming after her for her credit card stuff. I mean, it's very, very insane. And with our government that's for the oppression of the people and for the benefit of the rich, you have to do things to protect yourself, and there's all kinds of laws to do it. It's just a matter of knowing the laws, knowing how to enforce them, and then enforcing them. So one of the big things about what we try to do is, number one, we try to educate you. So it's not about you being the effect of, it's not about you coming in and not knowing what's happening. We try to make it so that we do the paperwork for you so that you don't have to actually do the paperwork, because that would be kind of hard on people. And if you've ever heard the thing about the elephant where you say, what part of it, what's it look like? And it depends on where the person was standing. So for the description. And what we try to do is give you specific things that can be done easily and clean up your report. We're working on a new project, too, that will even be making it easier and easier for you or for individuals that have big debt. And we also have ways of getting people new credit if they want it. So we've got a few different ways of going. There's some that cost a lot more money, so it just depends on what a person needs and wants at this time. So most of what we're doing now is going in and correcting the books so that when a person has a problem with their credit, when they have a problem with a bank suing them all the time. And by the way, if any of you have a problem, and I would assume a few do, one of the things that you can do is go to your phone company, and they will actually show you how to stop receiving calls from 800 numbers, and they'll show you how to stop receiving calls from specific numbers if you don't know how to do that already. But it's relatively easy. And so you can block Chase, you can block Bank of America, you can block this one and that one. And usually they'll allow you to block anywhere from 10 to 20 numbers. And those are the numbers that Bank of America would use or Chase would use. And they're specific for your case, because if you have a debt with a credit card company or some small company that isn't on the list, you can block them in particular. So our goal is to give you that. Now, another thing that we want to do, and most important, by the way, I always make this emphasis. My goal isn't to get a person out of debt. My goal is to give them the tools so that they are in better shape for the future. It's not about just the debt of getting rid of the debt right now. It's making it so that people are putting away money, saving money, and creating their future. And if a person has, let's say, $500 a month going out in credit card debt now, I recommend that they continue that $500 but into a savings account. And at the end of the year, now you got $6,000, 2 years, 12, and then it builds up. And then if you borrow from it, treat yourself as if you're a banker. Charge high interest, and basically put yourself into a position where you have more and more and more money in that coffer, so that you actually get into a position where now you got $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the bank, which sounds like a lot to many people because they're not used to it. But it feels really nice when you have that cash flow. It feels really nice when you don't have to worry about, am I going to have a problem again? And by the way, I've been there. I've done as many screwy things with credit cards as anybody. I don't use credit much anymore, but I'm thinking I will because I know how to use it again, but I'll use it in a different way. And it's only if it makes money, because the money that we are used to making on credit cards, the way we're used to using credit cards is basically just to go in more and more and more in debt. And the truth is, that's what our country's done. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen with the insane policies of this administration or any of the previous ones. Everything since Kennedy, as far as I know, has just put us more and more in debt. And so if you want a good example of what not to do, just study the current history of the banking system in the United States. Now, what we also do is we create we're creating a lot of agreements with the banks by negative, them not responding. So if a person had a problem and there was a threat of suit, and we've never had anybody have to have a lawsuit. Never, ever have we had that. With a couple of exceptions, and I'll tell you what those exceptions were. The people didn't follow the program at all. They didn't follow through on the program. They actually thought that one said to me, "Oh, I didn't understand this," and they didn't call me. And so it was like 4 months later, they're complaining. And I said, "Well, what happened?" "Well, I didn't understand that stuff I was supposed to send in." And it was like, oh, no. I mean, I really like people that I work with. So it was like, oh, no. And we would have had to start the whole process over because it wasn't completed. So it's like, and I had one lady who had a lot of debt. And I said, well, we can charge you a little bit more, and then what we'll do is we will more or less babysit her through making sure she gets these things done so that we wouldn't have the problem. But it's basically a relatively simple process. And we've had people that I have one guy I was talking to a few months back. He had 320. By the way, this is a very high amount. It's the highest that I've seen personally. So, I mean, I've known people that have higher debts, but I've not worked with them. This guy had $325,000 on his cards, and his business went down the drain because of the 2008 fall out of the market. He had no way of paying it, and he's out of debt now. He owes nothing to anybody, and he's now putting away money every month, and he's very successful again. But now he's doing it without having the interest that he was paying before, because now he doesn't have that anymore. So I don't know if I explained this well or not, so I might have left out a piece or two. And if you have any questions that are for yourself or in general, I'll be happy to entertain those and see if I can answer them for you.
All right. So if you have any questions for Bruce, it's real simple. You hit *8 on your phone, and you'll come up in the queue, and we can see you. It looks like Chuck 49 VA has a question to start off with.
Hello, Chuck.
Hello, Chuck.
Hey, Bruce. Tad, how y'all doing?
Good,
thank you.
Can you hear me all right?
You're
Yes,
coming
we
through
can.
perfect.
Good. Bruce, you covered it very well. What I've been doing, I've lost just about everything I have through this process. I have been dealing with the IRS also. You don't do any of that, do you? You do?
On the IRS issues, I have a person that could help, but I don't personally do it. No.
Okay.
But I work with him on another process, and he's been very successful. I won't go into any details, but I did see one that I was so impressed with that I just tout this, because he had a guy that had, apparently it was either a guy that was fairly well off or somehow got really screwed by the IRS, or both. And he had $800,000 that he owed.
Wow.
And what happened was, when he got done with the process, they dropped it down to $20,000. Then when they finally finished it, redoing it again, he ended up with owing $32.
My word.
I love this story.
Yeah, that is a good story. The question I had, though, was dealing with the credit that you have.
Yes.
I've been using a credit verification letter, and when I send it in and ask them then to verify the fact that the credit is owed to them, under truth in lending law, they have to do that. Well, as soon as they get that, they sell it to another credit card or debt collector.
Right.
So I've been through about 6 or 7 of them. Is there any way to stop that?
Unfortunately, not really that easily. It's just a matter of having the right letters to answer them, because what happens is, here you got ABC Credit Card Company, they get running off, and then you've got MNO Credit Card Collection Agency, and they get running off. And what they sell it for is less and less and less money. They're trying to get, at first, if you had a credit, the banks will actually sell it for about 6 cents on a dollar. It goes anywhere from 3 to 6 cents on a dollar.
Okay, but then what they do is illegal, isn't it? Because it's FDI insured, and that's paid for. And once it's paid for, they don't have the legal right to sell that to anybody, do they?
You are absolutely correct. They have no legal right to sell it to anybody. That doesn't mean anything in their books. They really don't care.
They don't care? Is that what it amounts to?
Yeah, they don't care, and what judge is going to give them a sanction or whatever. So what you're dealing with is smoke and mirrors, and you're basically wanting to answer them, or like you got that guy that does the 2,000 credit card company lawsuits each month, and you just know that what you're dealing with is such a corrupt system that it's like the drug companies. We know that Prozac and Prozac had 28 people that died while they were on the testing period of it. They just squashed that information.
Right.
And they don't want to tell everybody that all the mass murders, and it is true, all the mass murders in the last 20, 30 years, the people have been on some type of psychiatric drug.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and it's totally insane. And I don't want you to think sanity at all. I don't want you to think logic at all. I want you to think legal and corruption.
Right.
And we go with legal, and we try to handle them properly. We educate you, and we have different methods for doing wonderful things with credit and all that. And it's just a matter of taking yourself or whoever, basically sitting down one-on-one and getting the information and then seeing what could be done. Can't do everything, and sometimes it's not worth doing because it's too small, or it's not worth doing like it's too convoluted, or it's too much after the fact.
Right.
But I've got a lady that just called me from South Africa last few days, and I said, well, maybe I can help you. I don't know, though. I'm going to have to talk to our technical people if it would work down there, and I don't know the system down there. So I'm thinking that it will be something out of our scope, but at the same time, I'll entertain it a little bit. I'll look at it. And
what type of fees do you charge, Bruce? I didn't hear you mention that.
Oh, okay. The fees are basically for the credit cards. We have a few different ways of doing it, but on the getting rid of credit card debt, it's anywhere from about $3,400 up to about $7,000.
Okay.
So it's person has to have a fair amount before they can use our service. But I like it because I got one friend of mine down in Portland, and he went from $94,000 in debt, and for about, in his case, it was about $5,000, $6,000. And he goes, I'll take that any day, you know. He got rid of all of his credit card debt, and now he's freed up.
Okay.
And on some of our other services, we've got some very creative things to do, and we can actually help even with huge amounts of debt in different areas. So, but anyway, our stuff isn't cheap. It's just very professional, and it's very good.
All right. Thank you very much, Bruce. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Have a good.
Thanks for the question.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay. Jim and I, actually, before we get to this next one, if you're on the computer and you have chat, you're more than welcome to use the chat to ask questions as well. Gemini East 11, you're next. Gemini East 11, did you have a question? Mute you one more time. Gemini East 11, did you have a question? Ask a question, you hit star 8, but to mute and unmute, you hit star 6. Okay, I guess they don't have a question. Is there anybody on the chat that has a question? Okay.
I have one thing that comes up a fair amount.
Okay.
And this, I didn't bring it up before I forgot. But in terms of time that it takes to do this, one of the processes, it takes about 4 months, and that's 4 months up front, and then the other part can last for a few months longer, up to a year, 6 months to a year altogether. And then once a person's credit is cleaned up, once a person's debt is cleaned off the books, we can actually help them to go in and get that cleaned up, and that takes another 3 to 6 months or more. And if people want to have a great credit profile for life, there's simple things that they can learn that will allow them to use credit properly. You know, for instance, if you can get even a 10% loan, but you can get a 30% return on it,
right,
then, you know, you can make some good money if you know how to use it.
Sounds like Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And we've seen that most people have a real problem because they've been uneducated about how to use credit. And so therefore they spend literally thousands of dollars on interest on stuff that they bought, like for a car or toys or whatever, instead of just paying cash for things. Most people don't know how to think that way. And like one little trick is, I was talking to my daughter, and kids don't listen a whole lot, but she at least listened to this one. And she said she wanted to buy a new car, and I said, how much is it a month? And I forget the amount, but let's say $350 or $400, but let's say $400 a month. I said, okay, why don't you take $400 and put it away each month for a year, and now when you go to buy the car, you're used to the $400. You know it's not a problem. And you also know that you can do it without any and you can also use that $4,800 that you just saved for the year.
Right.
So that's a down payment, and now you can do it for $350, let's say, or $300. And oh God, Dad, that's great. She sometimes thinks that I'm smart. But it's like planning ahead and thinking ahead. And our biggest goal is to put people into good shape so that they can think with this. And there's a lot of investments out there if you have the credit. Like, for instance, with the houses right now, if people had the credit, how many houses could they buy? You know, if they don't find one bank, they can find another bank. If they have the credit, and there's other games that we can play with that even to bolster a person's credit, or if they have really bad credit, to create a new credit profile for them. And that would be a business one. So it would be just a matter of a little bit of time to be able to buy houses if they wanted, and basically use those as investments.
So, Bruce, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
How many people have you helped since you started doing this?
Well, personally, I don't know. It's in the hundreds, and our company has probably done, I'm guessing on the numbers because we don't keep this statistic, but we might have done 100,000 credit cards. So, you know, because some people have 4 or 5.
Right.
Some will have. I had one gentleman that it was unbelievable. He was a young man that really learned the credit game, and he had 70 credit cards. I don't know. How do you get 70 credit cards?
But he probably studied with Thomas Kish.
Thomas Kish, or that guy down in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That he had at least that many, and but he had 70 cards. So I would say that we've done probably 100,000 cards.
Wow.
And now let me tell you that I've had 2 people in the people that I've worked with. I've had 2 that had problems, and those 2 were they were friends, and they both were that confused person that basically didn't follow through on the program. And they don't have to do anything. And on the one program, they don't have to do anything beyond sending in the letters certified. And we tell everybody to read them so that they would know what they were sending. But just those sending in the letters certified, they stopped. I mean, they didn't do the 4th letter. And it was like, huh? And you want to choke them because you want to help them, and they don't do it. It's like, oh my God. And I've even told people that I can charge them extra if they want, and I'll babysit them and walk them through this if they need that. Most people don't need it. You know, as a matter of fact, they're the only 2 that I've had that didn't do it right. And one of them was kind of nuts, and the other one was her friend.
Okay.
I mean, it's not bad nuts. It was just she was so troubled with life.
Sure.
And but I can say one,
especially now.
Yeah, and the thing that I can say that's really important to know is if you get your financial life together, and you're sitting pretty financially, or just well off financially, and you're feeling in control, all that pressure I mean, like, one of the biggest reasons for divorces, finances. You know, they don't have, he didn't make enough money, she didn't make enough money, blah, 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 whatever it was. But people argue over finances. And I know I had a wonderful wife who decided to, anything I made she could spend faster than I can make it.
Wow.
And it was nothing bad about her except, I mean, I wish I made more money at the time.
Sounded like it was fun to be your wife, Bruce.
It would have been. but
you make it, I take it.
Yeah. And all we had to do was plan a little bit. And we would have, because I did well. I made good money. And, but with that money going out faster, very, very discouraging.
Oh, sure.
And like here we are, you know, and one gentleman, he said it's not the lack of, it's not the credit that's a problem. Too much debt is not the problem. He said not enough credit is the problem. If you have $20 million in credit available, you feel a little bit more at ease when you have, you know, $600 going out every month on credit cards. And it made a lot of sense. But the thing is, people get into a trap, and most of them don't get to that point where they have so much credit that they don't have to worry about it anymore, like Donald Trump.
Right.
You know, the average person doesn't have $200,000 in credit available. So our whole thing is...
We do have a question on the board.
Please.
Somebody in Florida, I'm going to unmute you, and you'll be free to ask your question. Hello in Florida. Your phone was just unmuted.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Bruce. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you. You doing okay, too?
A couple questions for you. You mentioned financial solutions and debt-free relief.
Uh-huh.
Are they both one and the same, or who are they?
No. What we have is we actually have 4 different companies, or I have four different companies that I work with. And what we try to do is find that which is actually pretty magical for the individual, and it's a good fit, or at least something that's very good for them in some cases because one process won't work because of money or whatever. So I look for that which is best for the individuals.
The other 2 questions I had, what types of debt do they take, and what types don't they take? And they get more information to get going to.
Well, here's the thing that we do. One of the hardest things that we can do is student loans. The government is the biggest corrupt unit. I mean, the mafia has nothing over the government. And the government has said student loans now can go on forever until they're paid, plus interest. And so that we don't do. We do and we don't do like car loans, but we do credit cards, LOCs, seconds on homes. We also have one process where we can do with mortgages that's very effective. And that's not something I talked about, but it's something that we can do. And get a person out of debt, basically. Almost, like I said, that student loans is one of those difficult ones, just because the government has a great need of money, and they basically are no longer following the basic principles that they started out on. They have totally done away with.
So you have a credit card with a bank. You also have your insurance through them or something. Is it something you have to dump?
Well, the bank has the insurance.
Do you lose your insurance with them, or are they typically separate?
The bank uses the insurance if it's not paid, but the bank actually does a thing with securitizations processes. They basically bundle them up and they sell them off. And they also, I've heard, by the way, this is something that I'm not sure about, but I heard it from a reasonable source that when a bank opens a credit card, they get a $2 million line of credit to use with that. Now, I do not know that that's true, but knowing our banking system and knowing our political system, which basically cowers to bank, basically follows and does whatever the bank says, there's no loss of anything, because again, it was back to ledger book financing.
I guess what I think I misstated. If you say you have a credit card with a bank and the bank provides other services such as insurance, like homeowners insurance or something like that, is something you can deal with, just eliminating the credit card and not having the bank say, okay, well, since you're dealing with my credit card, we're going to close your insurance at the same time.
Oh, I don't know. I've not had that problem with insurance, but I do know that I had one gentleman down in Los Angeles who had the credit card program, and he left his money that he had in his banking account, he left it in the same bank. I think it was Chase. And Chase just went in and swiped it. They took $3,000 out of his checking account.
Wow.
I mean, it was like totally illegal, totally insane. But that's what they're getting away with now. That's why, and unfortunately, our company is needed. Our companies are needed. We really don't like the fact that we are needed, because it would be much nicer to do things that's a more positive thing. But at the same time, we want to basically, we see the problem and we want to help a little bit.
So, one last question. How do you get more information about your program to get started?
Okay, send a note to Tad.
Okay, so the way you do that is you go to youhavetheright.com, and there's a little informational input field that you could fill out, and that will go straight to Bruce. Go to youhavetheright.com. On the left-hand side, it says credit cards with Bruce Myers. Actually, hold on, let me bring it up here real quick. Tell you exactly what it says. So on the front page of youhavetheright.com, on the left-hand side, it says Credit Card Settlement with Bruce Myers. Click on that, and it will take you to a little input form field that you can fill out and tell Bruce all about your situation.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Bruce. We appreciate it.
Sure.
And that was the other question that I was going to ask, because we have that question on the board. So if you want to get in touch with Bruce, go to You Have the Right, all spelled out, Y-O-U, youhavetheright.com.
Also, if you guys want we have a special program that we have used for a long, long time in terms of organizing stuff, your paperwork and all that, so that if you have a problem, or if it's not organized, you may miss certain papers and all that. But how to excuse me, how to keep things organized in a way for legal situations and for financial situations. It's a simple little thing that we found that it works, and I'll be happy to just send that to everybody that wants it. So just ask for that. Say you want the organizing system, and I'll send that out to you.
We have another question on the board as far as the cost for credit cleanup. What is involved, and what is the cost of credit cleanup?
Okay. Credit cleanup is two things. One is we have to figure out what you got that is needed. And in terms of the cost, I really don't know in particular until I've analyzed what you got. And it can be very effective. It's not, our stuff is, everything that we do is pretty expensive. So it's not cheap. But basically, if you wanted one where we can clean it up and get you a large line of credit, that'll be different than if we're just cleaning it up so that you don't have any negatives on there.
So you're expensive, but Bruce, do you get results?
Well, let me say it this way. I have a lot of people that love me. Only a few that don't. And the results that we're getting now, we're entering a new phase. You know, we went through all of the Tim Turner work. We went through a few different ones, and what we found is that by doing a little bit of research, we were able to really accelerate what we can do and make it so that when we're doing it, we can help people in some cases very, very quickly. So we've been able to speed up the time and speed up the results. And it just depends on what a person needs. Unfortunately, I have to look at things in their individual capacities. So I'll wait until I see something that a person has, and then we can talk about the prices on that.
Okay.
On the credit, getting rid of it, that's not a problem. And but the other stuff it's a little bit more delicate and it's a little bit more personalized.
Yeah, dude.
So anyway, we're coming up to the end of the hour here.
Yeah, you got anything?
Do you have a question? We're coming up to the end of the hour, and it's been very informative. And again, the best way to get a hold of Bruce is to go to youhavetheright.com and contact him. There's a little place on the front page where you can contact Bruce Myers, tell him about your situation. So, Bruce, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we close for the evening?
Well, thanks for being here, everybody. I very much enjoy helping where I can, and this is a position that has allowed me to help an awful lot of people with their problems, and I look forward to hearing from anybody and everybody that writes in, and I will respond to you. Thank you.
All right. Well, folks, thank you very much for being here. Hopefully this has been informative and helpful for you. And again, to get in touch with Bruce, you go to youhavetheright.com and check it out and send Bruce a message and get the ball rolling and see if there's anything that can be done for you. So anyway, folks, thank you very much, and we'll keep you informed when we have other calls like this again. So have a good evening.